Introducing YouTube memberships, a fun way to support the channel while getting some exclusive perks. Click the join button to become a member now and get benefits like badges next to your name on videos, behind-the-scenes photos, advantages during the live trivia game, discounts on merchandise, private one-on-one video chats, the ability to request future video topics, and exclusive 8 to 10 minute videos on the history of the NFL. And now, on with our feature presentation. What's one of the golden rules of talking to the press after the game? If you win, you thank your teammates and praise them for putting you in that spot. If you lose, you blame yourself. You pass off the credit and you take the blame. If you hear a player after a loss say something like, "I wasn't the reason this team lost today," especially if you had a critical error like a drop pass, a turnover, a missed field goal, or anything along those lines, oh, you're going to be scrutinized, and rightfully so. If you're a quarterback and you end the game throwing 3 interceptions that were entirely your fault, and you say afterwards, yeah, I'm not going to look back at that game and say I was the reason that we lost, because truth be told, it was a team loss. Good luck surviving the press, the fans, and the wrath of your head coach. If you're that oblivious or that selfish, things are not going to work out for you. Not at all. And I bring that up because the man you've been watching this whole time is Miami Dolphins kicker Uwe von Schamann. With the Dolphins playing the Cowboys this week, if you're watching as of this video getting released, it feels like an appropriate time to bring this story up, because it is a bizarre one, and a lesson in how not to deal with the press and handle a loss. Because after a game between his Miami Dolphins and the Dallas Cowboys, von Schamann spoke to the press about one of the most critical plays of the game, and as we learn more about the game, it will become very obvious why this play was so important. And his response was, shall we say, incredibly strange, and drew a lot of criticism, and understandably so. Any other response, and this is a non-story more than 4 decades later, but this response? Yeah, not his finest moment, I'll put it that way. Because this is the story behind, quite possibly, the stupidest kicker and the stupidest post-game press conference in the over half-century-long history of the Miami Dolphins franchise. Before I talk about the actual comments in question and what exactly von Schamann said, we need some context to not only understand how this game was going, but also how this season was going for von Schamann in particular. It's October 25th, 1981. It's week 8 of the NFL season. And as we're at the halfway point of the year, we've got a big interconference game on our hands down in Texas between the Miami Dolphins and the Dallas Cowboys. To say that this is a big game would be putting it lightly, and not just because this was the national 4 o'clock game being shown to the majority of the country, with the #1 crew of Dick Enberg and Merlin Olsen on the call. Entering this game, these were 2 of the best teams in football. The Dolphins entered this one with the best record in the AFC, sitting at 5-1-1, and with 4 other teams also sitting with 5 wins, the Dolphins needed this one to maintain their hold on the #1 seed in the conference. As for the Cowboys, they were also having an amazing season, sitting at 5-2. However, they sat 1 game behind the 6-1 Philadelphia Eagles for the division lead, so they needed a win here to potentially put themselves in first place in the division at the halfway point. It was a battle between 2 absolute heavyweights, and in a game like this, every minute detail and every mistake could mean the difference between winning and losing. And man, was there a big mistake that happened in this one. Because when all was said and done, in an absolutely thrilling affair, the Dallas Cowboys handed Miami just their 2nd loss of the season, as the Cowboys emerged from this game victorious, taking it by a final score of 28-27. There were quite a few reasons why Miami ended up losing this game. For starters, quarterback David Woolley could not stop turning it over, as he ended the day throwing a whopping 5 interceptions, including one at the very end of the contest as the Dolphins were driving. Miami's pass defense was pretty porous, as Cowboys quarterback Danny White finished the day going 22 for 32, completing a very nice 69% of his passes for 354 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 123.7. White threw 2 touchdown passes late in the contest as the Cowboys were trailing 27-14, so his late fourth quarter heroics proved to be the difference. Miami had no answers for future Hall of Fame running back Tony Dorsett, as he finished the day with 122 yards rushing on over 5 yards per carry. And Miami lost the turnover margin by 3. Usually, when you're -3 in the turnover column, it's not going to bode well for you in terms of your chances at winning the game. Having said all of that, you might have noticed something odd about the score, and that was the fact that it was only a 1-point game. Back in 1981, the 2-point conversion did not exist. So what would you normally assume happened if a team scored 27 points? In all likelihood, you're thinking of the traditional way: 3 touchdowns with an extra point, and then 2 field goals. But that was not the case in this game. Not at all. Because in the second quarter, with the Dolphins trailing 7-0, David Woodley threw a 5-yard touchdown pass to Tony Nathan to make the score 7-6. Now, it's time for the extra point. It's a chip shot. You're kicking this from the 2-yard line, and in 1981, even though the quality of kicking was way worse than it is today, an extra point was still pretty much automatic, as kickers were hitting on that over 95% of the time. Time to trot out the kicker. Time to trot out Uwe von Schamann to tie this ball game up. As for what happened next,
Von Schamann to try the extra point. Hits the upright, no good.
That's right. He missed the extra point. Off the right upright. And when you lose a game by 1 point, I think it's safe to say that missing an extra point is a pretty big deal. Obviously, you can't say things would have played out exactly the same had it not been for that. But it's hard not to wonder what happens if von Schamann makes the extra point, seeing as the Dolphins lost by 1. And if he made it, you're looking at a 28-28 bowl game. Now for this man right here, the man of infamy, and the man who missed the kick, von Schamann, 1981 had not been a good season for him up until that point. I'm not sure Dolphin fans had quite yet forgiven head coach Don Shula for letting Garo Yepremian go in favor of the German kicker, even though this was already his 3rd season with the team. After a 1980 season where von Schamann hit just under 61% of his kicks, which was comfortably in the bottom half of the league, and was 10 percentage points lower than what Garo Yepremian was doing out in Tampa, von Schamann picked up right where he left off in 1981, which is to say, not in a good spot. Entering the game against the Cowboys, over his last 6 games, von Schamann went just 7 for 12 on field goals, hitting a mere 58% of the time. One of the biggest reasons why the Dolphins were 5-1-1 and had a tie on their record was because in that overtime tie, a 28-28 thriller against the New York Jets, von Schamann missed 2 field goals. He may have cost the Dolphins that game, and may have cost them a full game lead in the AFC by this point. And now, here he was, missing an extra point in what turned out to be a 1-point loss in an all-important game. Now, was von Schamann the only reason the Dolphins lost? Of course not. The Dolphins led at 27-13 in the fourth quarter, and it probably never should have come down to his leg in the first place. But his efforts definitely did not help matters much. I think that's fair to say. And after the game, the press, understandably, wanted to talk to von Schamann, seeing as he was slumping pretty hard as of late, and seeing as he had missed the extra point in the 1-point game. And you would think that von Schamann would say something along the lines of, "I'd like to have that one back. It stinks, and I feel like I let my teammates down." You would think that von Schamann would say something like, "When you lose a game by 1 point, you obviously look at my missed kick and what would happen if I made it. And I definitely blame myself for that." You would think that von Schamann would say something like, "That missed extra point turned out to be the difference on the scoreboard, and I definitely feel responsible for how this game played out." Basically, anything to take any sort of accountability. And if Uwe von Schamann did that, or anything close to that, then this would be a complete non-story. There is no way that I'm talking about this, and there is no way that this is being remembered and looked at 40 years later if that was the case. But oh no. Uwe von Schamann did not do that. Because his post-game presser can basically be boiled down to, don't blame me for that one at all. I had nothing to do with that. Said von Schamann after the game on the missed extra point, I don't know what happened. All I know is that I kicked the ball the way I usually do. And then it drifted right and hit the upright. I took my same approach, and then, I don't know. So far, no issues. But then, much like the Energizer Bunny, he kept going. Because as he then said, there's no way I can look at that and say that if I would have hit that, we would have won the game. I can't say that I lost the game because I missed that extra point. It was a team effort, and you have to look at it that way. You can't blame it on any one person. Wait a second, time out. That's your response? Your response was, I kicked it well, but the ball just magically sailed on me. So don't blame me for that kick, because I hit it well. And even if I made it, so what? We might not win the game. My teammates are the reason we lost that one. I had nothing to do with that. Are you actually kidding me? Seriously, are you actually kidding me with that response? You lost the game by 1 point. You missed an extra point, which is a chip shot kick that every kicker in the league can hit with ease and can hit in their sleep. And you're seriously going to sit there with the press and say that you didn't have anything to do with the loss and that you're completely blame-free? When someone says something along the lines of, it was a team effort, and you have to look at it that way, you're thinking it's a quarterback who had a great day in a winning effort and is thanking his offensive line for blocking for him and his offensive coordinator for calling a great game. You don't associate that with a kicker who missed a kick in a 1-point game. That is delusional. You seriously think you're blame-free and you're trying to deflect all of the blame onto others in a game that you lost by 1? With the 1 point being because you didn't do your job properly? It's like if you're at the free throw line and you lose a game by 1 because you missed the free throw, and you say, I had nothing to do with why we lost. It's like if you're in the batter's box and with the bases loaded, you lose the game by 1 run because you struck out, and you say, I had nothing to do with why we lost. You get why this is insane, right? You get why this is completely and utterly insane for von Schamann to say what he said, where he lacks any and all situational awareness, right? And obviously, I'm not saying that von Schamann should have beat himself up over the kick. Part of being a great kicker in this league is that you have to have a short memory and forget things very quickly, because if you dwell on your mistakes, you get the yips, and once you get the yips, it is extremely hard to shake them off. Having said that, there is a fine line between not beating yourself up and not taking any accountability whatsoever. All you had to say here was, I missed the 1-point kick, and we lost by 1, so I definitely feel some responsibility for how this one played out. And no one is batting an eye. Seriously, say anything like that, and no one in their right mind is criticizing you afterwards for your post-game comments. But to go ahead and say this, and act completely blameless when that was not the case? I don't know what to say other than the fact that this is delusion at its finest. Complete and utter delusion. That's all there is to this. Now, von Schamann actually rebounded quite nicely after this game. Over the second half of the regular season, he did not miss an extra point, and on field goals, he went 15 for 17, hitting over 88% of his kicks, which was a fantastic percentage for 1981 and was way better than the first half of the year. And in 1982, he was named an AP second-team All-Pro after hitting on 75% of his kicks during the strike-shortened season. He was no Gary Yepremian, and he did have a tendency to choke in big spots, such as that epic in Miami during the 1981 divisional. But at the very least, he was a serviceable kicker. But in terms of knowing what to say, that was definitely not his forte. He knew how to kick field goals, but didn't know how to take responsibility for his actions or the outcome of a game, even if he was responsible for it. Because after this performance against the Cowboys in 1981, where his 1-point gaffe was the difference in a 1-point game, Von Schamann, the kicker, was definitely not kicking himself. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.